What's up, Cougs? Thanks for joining us today. Hope you guys are still enjoying the bowl win. I know I am. I've eaten Pop-Tarts every day for the last few days, so it has been fun. Today, we're going to talk about something a little bit different, something a little more serious. So I'd appreciate it if you extended me just a little bit of grace and patience in this. I don't make videos like this very often, but I do want to get this off my chest. Today, we're going to talk about the vulgar anti-Mormon chants that we heard earlier this year in Cincinnati and Colorado, and in prior years at other big name locations like USC and Oregon, because this isn't just a one-off. Shouting anti-LDS chants has now turned into an ongoing multi-year thing. So I stayed pretty quiet on this the last several weeks. I've read articles, I've listened to the audio clips, I've watched the student section videos. I got uncomfortable. In fact, I think it's something a lot of people in the national media are unwilling to touch because of how uncomfortable it is. It's just easier for some people to avoid things. But BYU fans have to deal with this. And BYU fans have had to deal with this for several years now. So it doesn't appear to be going away. So we're going to talk about it, even if it is a little bit uncomfortable. And again, I apologize if we get a little uncomfortable today. I promise you guys, we don't do this often. And this isn't a pity party either. I know you guys are stronger than that. So I'm going to reveal exactly why the 3 words they screamed at the top of their lungs didn't really hurt the team on the field, but it might have cost them something much more. Stick around because I'm going to walk you through a scenario that proves how differently things could have played out for these young adults who were shouting the hatred. Really quick, this is part 1 of another 2-part series we're doing on anti-LDS bigotry. Part 1 is titled Take the High Road. If you enjoy this, we'd ask you to share it with somebody, but we appreciate you tuning in nonetheless. Anyway, back to the video. So I know what some of you are thinking right now. Some of you are thinking, hey, dude, this happened several weeks ago. Why are you bringing it up now? The season's over. Why open old wounds when we could just move on to recruiting and transfer portal news? Well, the vulgar chants heard at Cincinnati and specifically Colorado didn't just fade away from me. They bothered me. They sat in the back of my mind for a few days. My initial reaction, honestly, was to jump on the mic and immediately defend the players. It would have felt good to go scorched earth after the game, but I held back. I stopped myself because I knew the landscape of the Big 12 race, and I knew what was left on the schedule. With critical games coming up against UCF and Texas Tech drawing more attention, the chants might have just poured more fuel onto the fire. I didn't want to encourage more of it and make it worse by giving it a bigger spotlight. And I didn't want a knee-jerk, politically correct reaction that would just get lost in the noise. I had a lot of feelings, some of which were contradictory. But now that the dust has settled, I've had time to think, and I finally know what I want to say about it. I want to talk about the hard truth about the drunk college kid reality. We've all seen it. Young adults do stupid things. Drunk young adults at football games do really stupid things. Now, I'll tell you, I believe in freedom of speech. I'm not here to police anyone's thoughts or what they say. But I also believe that one person's right to free speech usually stops where another person's rights begin, or at least where common decency begins. And I'm not a legal scholar on where the exact constitutional line is with these specific chants. What I can tell you is this: they crossed my personal line. And I want to make it very clear, as far as freedom of speech, I think that this is very different from saying FBYU or some other rowdy sports chant. Attacking a religion is different because we've seen how this has played out through history. It is a slippery slope. If you devalue people, you open the doors to worse atrocities. So I'm going to stand up for my LDS friends, just like I would for my Jewish friends. And in a minute, I'm going to explain why they crossed a line that could have been 100 times worse for them. Before I get to that, let's look at the F the Mormons chant itself. It's 3 words. It seems simple. It seems to a lot of people like just another rowdy Saturday in the student section. Just kids being kids, right? But let's play a game of what if. This is the part of the video where I might make you a little uncomfortable, but it's necessary to see the truth. If those same students in those same stadiums were chanting the exact same 3-word phrase about Jewish people, what would happen? What if they were labeled as pro-Nazi? The reaction would be cataclysmic. I want you to visualize that for a second. Replace the word Mormons with a slur for Jewish people. People wouldn't just be upset about this. The game could possibly get stopped. The broadcast booth would be issuing apologies live on the air. The internet sleuths would be out in force within minutes. They would systematically identify every face in that crowd that they could. They'd be taking screenshots of faces in 4K resolution, and then they would associate them with Nazis. Those young adults would have been on the front page of Reddit, Twitter, likely CNN, and they would have been labeled for life. But because the target is BYU, and because the target is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, it didn't go down like that. We'll talk more about that in just a minute. There's no way these chants, I want to tell you, hurt the BYU football team. Let me tell you something about that locker room that you may not know. I know for a fact the noise preparation inside the practice facility is louder than anything you can produce. I know that the mental conditioning coach has these guys ready for anything. Those BYU players are going to be fine. They're strong. Those clowns aren't shaking them. Most of them have dealt with worse on their missions. They are far too mentally tough to be impacted by this stupidity. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if the general sentiment in the locker room regarding the chants wasn't anger, but instead pity. They weren't scared of them. They were embarrassed for them because they know the people they were actually hurting was themselves. So let's talk a little bit more about the career killer. Let's say they were caught on camera or someone recording on a cell phone, shouting some kind of an anti-Semitic slur. As we established, they would essentially become unemployable. People would publicly identify them. Their names would forever be associated with hatred and bigotry, and they would practically never be able to get a job. So in a lot of ways, even a stupid chant on a drunken night, they were literally gambling with their future lives more than they realized. Things posted on the internet live forever. Your name on the internet lives forever. You guys see the videos that I put out? I know that these videos are forever. And facial recognition technology is getting better every single day. Employers are using AI to scrub backgrounds of potential hires. Do you really think a Fortune 500 company wants to hire a guy seen screaming religious bigotry on a viral TikTok? Now, I get that some of them might be selfish. They might say things like, I don't care about those BYU kids. Fine, they can be that way. But are they selfish enough to say that they don't care about themselves? Because that's essentially what they're doing. They're lighting their own reputations on fire. Do they lack that much self-preservation that they're willing to risk their future earnings, their reputation, and their career just to shout hatred at 20 to 22-year-old football players? You'd think they got to be smarter than that. But I'll promise you this, Bear Bachmeier isn't losing sleep over them. However, they could be losing a job over him. And here's the biggest twist of all. This is the part that should shock people when they really think about it. I'm going to tell you the difference between LDS and a lot of others. And to be fully transparent, I've seen some of you ask on here, I am a Christian, I'm not part of the LDS church. But from my personal experience, BYU and the LDS church would allow these young men more grace than almost anyone else would, because that's the type of people that most LDS are. Most likely would forgive them. They preach repentance. They preach forgiveness. They don't just call themselves Christian. They actually live by those values. They wouldn't want to ruin their lives over a mistake. However, the internet isn't Christian, and a background check might not believe in forgiveness and repentance. Employers aren't forgiving. The corporate world is looking for reasons to cancel people to protect their stock price. They are handing them the ammunition on a silver platter. They are loading the gun that could shoot down their career prospects. So I hope they do get older, mature, and learn at least self-preservation. But more than that, I do hope that Jesus heals whatever is broken inside of them that causes them to not care about others. And I hope he heals whatever is inside of them that causes them to not even care about themselves. And even though it bothered me, I pray for those people and forgive them. So to all the ADs out there who issued apologies and didn't really go any further and do much more than that, you guys need to help these young adults. And I'd suggest you share this message or a message like this with those young adults. Anyway, I know today's video was a little more serious, and I'll apologize for that. I usually like to keep it about football and a little bit more lighthearted and optimistic, and we'll get back to that soon, I promise. But I did need to get this off my chest. Would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. Not going to plug anything, not going to ask for anything on this video. All of our content is brought to you by Sleeper. I've told you about them enough. You're very well aware of that. Appreciate you guys, as always, for tuning in to College Football Addiction.